Okay, there we go. So, like I was saying, there's three phases of memory. The first one is encoding, storage, and then retrieval. And if you want to kind of think of this again as an analogy with a computer, encoding would be like pressing on a keyboard and putting in letters and words and those types of things, or kind of like what we're doing right now. I'm putting my voice into the computer. If you think about it with a gaming system, it's your controller for the game. This is all encoding. This is getting the information into the system. Okay. Um, and then we have kind of two types of storage that we'll talk about. Okay. One is analogous to our hard drive being long-term memory, the place where information is assumed to be permanently stored. Okay. The other one is called working memory. The analogy with a computer is your random access memory. It's the amount of memory you have to work with programs that are active. Okay. And the goal really of the memory system in our case is to get things from that working memory into the hard drive or the long-term memory. Okay. And then for humans, we also have retrieval. So this is going back into your computer, finding a file and bringing it back into working memory to where you could work with it and use it. So this is kind of the analogy between computers and the human memory system. Um, but let's take a little bit closer look at each one of these. Okay. First of all, there's encoding. This is also called sensory input. Okay. Encoding is automatic versus effortful. We should talk about, let me slow down for a minute. We should talk about two types of processes of information that we do. We have two, what if you want to call them systems, we have two systems. System one is an automatic system. It's something that if you recognize something in the environment, it doesn't take you effort to recognize it. It really is kind of that system that we rely on to make it through our day. Okay. Effortful encoding is when we focus on something, we pay close attention to it. Okay. And when we look at, for example, especially effortful attention, we can look at three types. One, we have selective attention. That's when we purposely focus on one single or few things. So I hope in this lecture that it's not putting you to sleep, but that you're focusing on the lecture. That this is an example of selective attention. Okay. The second type is divided attention. Okay. And this has also been called multitasking. And I think we've talked a little bit in this class here about multitasking. Can we really focus on more than one stimuli at a time? The more and more evidence we get is no, we do it in a serial attention, meaning that we change our focus from one object to the next and back and forth. And it feels like we're paying attention to multiple things at once. Okay. But again, as I mentioned in the class before, when we have this is the let me back up. This is the reason why we have laws that say you shouldn't use your cell phone during a car while you're actively driving a car, because we know that you're not really multitasking. You're not really attending to the road when you're attending to the car. It's kind of an illusion of our brain that we're paying attention to both. And we find that a lot of times people mess up, but they're not able to recognize it because of their shifting in attention. Okay. And I think I did mention here before that is there a gender difference in multitasking or serial tasking? And the answer is kind of. Okay. We find that women who have had children tend to be better at serial tasking, also known as multitasking. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it in the guise of when you have an infant who is totally and completely dependent upon you, but you still have other tasks you need to take care of. You become very good at shifting your attention from the infant to whatever other task you have to do to complete your day. Okay. We find that there is no difference between men and women who have not had children. Okay. So there's something to deal with having children, and we think it's that ability to learn how to shift from watching infant to whatever task you have to pay attention to as well. Okay. Sustained attention, also called vigilance, is another type of attention that we need to look at. Selective attention is we're focusing on a single stimuli, but that may not be the only thing we're thinking about. Okay. So again, I'll bring up this lecture. You may be kind of into this lecture. You might be giving selective attention to this lecture, but you also may be thinking, you know, what am I going to have for lunch after this class? What work do I have to get done? I wonder what show we're going to watch tonight. And so while you are being selective in choosing this current physical stimuli from the PowerPoint and from my voice, your thought processes may be partly invested in the lecture and partly invested in other things you have going on in your life. When we talk about sustained attention, we are often talking about purposely trying to block out any other types of memories and stimuli in order to focus on a given stimuli. Okay, so if you were practicing, for example, sustained attention in this class, every time you know, thoughts about after class come up, you would purposely try to block it, or those types of things. Okay. Now the nuances about sustained attention are that our brains are not very good at giving vigilance and sustained attention to a single stimuli. Okay. In fact, our brains kind of burn out on the cells and attention has to adjust to something else. And again, in lectures in the class before, I mentioned that, you know, in this 60 minutes to an hour and 15 you're with me, you may only retain about 15 to 20 minutes of it because of the attention splitting that we do. Okay. Now, there are some very important places where vigilance is important. So let's take, for example, a soldier who is on the lookout or is looking to see if the enemy is on their way. Okay. Well, the military, who has done a lot of research on this, has learned that they can't have a person trying to field the entire field that they're supposed to be looking at in a vigilant way. What they do is they do it in blocks. So let's say within the visual field, you have 5 blocks of stimuli. Okay. And so what they teach the guards is to look at block 1 for a couple seconds, block 2 for a couple seconds, block 3, and then go back. And so they're not sustaining any vigilance on a single stimuli. They're very quickly going from left, right to left, left to right. And they're constantly moving their eyes because in this situation, if they don't, then they're going to probably lose objects. Okay. Probably the most famous research done on sustained attention and whatnot is if we had you, let's say we had a blue team and a red team, and we wanted you to pay attention to how many baskets red team is making. Okay. And let's say we up the ante. If you get it right, we will give you $100. Okay. So let's say that that's kind of the case. So you're paying very close attention, and let's say then you are told to pay attention to player 1 and the person next to you is told to pay attention to person 5 or with the number 5. And so you're looking at number 1, whatnot. And during this, they do some different things. Probably the funniest one that they, and you could look this up on YouTube, is they have a clown run through the basketball court. Okay. And afterwards, we ask, did you happen to see that clown? And only about, I believe it's less than 20% of people, meaning that 80% or more did not see the clown. In fact, they didn't believe there was a clown until the researcher played the program back, because they recorded it. And sure enough, there was this clown. The person had no idea that the clown was even there. Okay. And this is one of the problems with vigilance, or trying to sustain attention to a specific stimuli, is you might miss something that is more significant, that might be harmful or whatnot in your environment. Okay. So after we get through attention, what we need to look at is what level of processing do we give a object. Okay. And we can put them into 3 categories: shallow processing, which we're just kind of, okay, we're recognizing that there's a curb coming up and I need to step up. You don't necessarily look at the curb, you don't look at it and give it definition. You just know you have to put your foot up and walk. Intermediate processes is, okay, so when we go down the road and we recognize there's cars, okay, there's vehicles. So in some of this research, we have people walk down a hallway where there's different pictures, but we'll use the analogy of, let's say we're walking down a street, okay, and at the end of the street, someone asks, how many cars did you see? And maybe you say, well, I saw about 10, 15 cars, okay? But then let's say the experimenter not only asked how many cars, what kind of cars did you see? That's when, because we just did intermediate processing, we just recognized the vehicles, where we have difficulties, okay? Now, and this is where deep processing comes in. If we want to remember the names of the cars, for example, we need to focus on those stimuli in a very meaningful way and specific way, okay? So deep processing is really when we're really looking not only that there was 15 cars, but there was 5 Jeeps, 6 Nissans, whatever it may be, okay? So let's take a little closer look at this. So when we shallow process things, we see the physical and perceptual features are analyzed. So lines, angles, the makeup of physical appearance, such as a car, are detected, okay? Intermediate processing is when we are able to give those stimuli some type of label. So the object is recognized as a car. Deep process is when we do semantic, meaningful, symbolic characteristics are used. So associations with cars are brought to mind. You find, you think about things like Porsches and Ferraris. You hope to buy one someday. You think of your friend who you and your friend driving to the beach one time. So you really, excuse me, you're really focusing on the memory of those stimuli of that vehicle as the example, okay? Now, this is a good time to bring up study skills, right? Because you're probably guessing, especially if it's a subject that you're really not into, but you have to take it because it's part of your general education classes, or it gets you to that class you want to be in. Most of the time when we're reading textbooks and we're going over material, we're either shallow processing, so we recognize the words on the page, and we might even say those words in our head, which is intermediate processing. But many times when we're studying, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to remember what we read, because we're not making what we read meaningful in some way, or we're not really deeply focusing on it and giving it purpose and meaning, okay? Because that requires deep processing, which you can guess from this system. This one takes up a lot of energy. It takes up a lot of resources to really do that kind of deep processing. And so we tend to prefer kind of navigating our world more on the shallow or intermediate level, okay? And this is where we bring up the notion of what's called elaborative processing. Elaboration can enhance memory. And so, for example, one way to remember information in a class is make it reference to something that you know about, putting in several hooks into it, okay? I think this is a good place to bring up a video on memory. So I'm going to actually stop sharing right now. I want to play this video. I'm going to stop the recording because YouTube will get grumpy about it.